Hello computer gaming modeling students. Today we're going to take our logo and turn it into an animated sprite that we can use in our game, whether we're using Game Maker or whether we're using XNA Game Studio. What I've done is I've already created the our logo. I put a bend modifier on it, and let's go ahead and do just a short 12 frame animation. So to make it a little easier, let's change our time configuration to 12. Okay, we're going to start out, turn on auto key, and let's do a bend. We'll go 90 on the bend, see what that looks like. Okay, now actually what I want to do is do that bend. I'm going to set that back to 0. I want to do that bend at frame 4. Okay, now let's set that angle to 90 degrees. And that gives us now a key at 0 and 4. Now let's go to 8, and we'll bend this the other way. We'll have a crimson logo that's kind of flapping around. Okay, so now we want to go, let's go, stay consistent on this. Let's go -90, like so. And let's come back now to 12, and let's go back to 0. So that way it'll look like this will cycle. So now if we go ahead and play that, we got a nice little animation, and you know, this will work for any kind of animation and whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, next we are going to now let's render this, and when we render this, we want to do the active time segment so we get all 12 frames, and that's the key to this, is let's do them do all 12. And for width, this is a little bit large for our game, so let's set this to around 200, and we'll set this to 200 as far as the output size. Okay, and we want to save these files as a PNG. That gives us transparency, and I've already got a folder that we can put this in. And let's go here to computer gaming. There's our class, there's our folder, and let's call this MGSH logo. We'll keep it at 24-bit alpha channel, and then let's go ahead and render and see what that's going to look like. Okay, I probably could made it a little bit shorter in the on the y-axis, but this is fine. This will work. Okay, now when we do that, we'll have 12 frames, and we're done. Didn't take long. And close this, and now let's take a look at our folder, and you can see what this did. There is saving everything here, and as you look at this, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It actually gave us 13 frames because it goes from 0 to 12. So that'll work just fine. Okay, now what we want to do next then is put those all into one sprite sheet. So we can go now to Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe Photoshop has this nice script which is called load files into stack. Now what this allows me to do is to select all of these files. And we had it in this folder. Okay, and we're going to select all of our files, and that's, you'll see it in the list now, and we'll click OK. This is going to do its magic, and you can see what's happening over here. Each image, it's going to be in its own layer. Okay, now that's kind of important because we're going to be using this script. Now, as that's running, let's take a look at this script here that we're going to use. This script is going to basically ask us how many columns we want, and you'll see what happens when we run this script. It's got a for loop in here, and it's going to take each one of these images and put it into one image, into one layer. So this will be available to you. You can look at it, modify it, but it's actually a pretty neat script. Should be built into Photoshop. Okay, so there's our image. You can see we've got this loaded, every one of these images, and now we're going to run that script. So we're going to go to scripts, and it's layers to sprite. Now, as you recall, the columns is going to be how many frames, and as you recall, I counted 13 frames. Okay, so now this is going to put each one of those images into one sheet. Okay, now we'll save this, and when we save this, we're going to save it as a PNG, and let's keep the same name, but we'll get rid of the zeros. Okay, let's save that. We've accepted default on that. Okay, now we can minimize this, and go into our XNA code that we've been working on in class. As you look at this too, you can see now it's 2,600 by 200. It has all those images now in one strip. Okay, so we'll do this like we've done our other sprites. Let's go ahead and declare our variables. So we have a texture 2D, and let's call this our logo, MGSH logo. Okay, then let's make a sprite out of this. Again, you have the code for this, so you can see what the sprite class does. And let's call this, to follow the same naming convention, let's call this sprite. And let's call this our MGSH logo. Okay, the next step now is put it into our content. So let's add existing item, and we're going to navigate to my folder that I got everything in, computer game modeling, and we want to select this then, as that had the 12 frames all in it. Alright, so now that's been brought in. There's our MGSH logo. There's our asset name. Might as well copy that right now, put it into the clipboard. And so now we're going to load our texture 2D and our sprite, or create the sprite. So the next thing we're going to do here is go to our load content. and what do we call it there? MGSH logo. So first thing, MGSH logo equals content dot load, and this is going to be a texture 2D. And we also then want to have our asset name. So now I can just do a Control V because I copied that into the clipboard. Okay. Now we're also going to, at this point, create also the sprite. So we call this Sprite MGSH logo. There we are. And now this is going to be a new sprite, and our sprite class constructor takes a location. So we can do this. We need to give it a vector location, and let's put it somewhere around 200 in our game screen, and we'll go over, we'll come down around 200. Let's go with that. We can always change it later. Alright, next it takes then our sprite sheet, in this case here, it's going to be MGSH logo. Okay. Next it needs a rectangle to show, which is going to be our initial frame. And we're not showing the right thing here. Okay, well, it's going to be a new rectangle. And as you recall, the initial frame on this is going to be at 0, 0. And the width of our image is going to be 200 by 200. That's the height. Okay. Okay, next is going to be how many frames we had. And you recall there was 13 frames. And then whether we want to have this thing moving around, which we don't. I'm just going to have it sit there, so we'll make that 0. Okay. Now, it doesn't like something about this. See if we can figure out. We got Sprite MGSH logo equals new Sprite. New vector. Oh, that's why. I'm missing a parentheses. Okay, now it likes it. Okay, so now we've loaded and created our sprite. Okay, now, like the other sprites that we did, we will put an update in here. So if game states.plane, we need then to also Sprite MGS logo dot update game time. Okay, so that'll update it. Now we need to draw it. So now game states plane. Let's do a sprite our logo dot draw. And we need to include the sprite batch, or pass the sprite batch to it. Alright, that should be, and of course if we want to do other things with it, we can certainly can. And now let's go ahead and run that and see what we get. Okay, there's me and the family out inner tubing. I don't know who brought the cat, but we're going to go on. And there is our logo. You can see our crimson logo is an animated sprite. And we could do the same thing with this as we did with the other ones. There's our other Sprite girl. Hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy making your own sprites and sprite sheets for your own game assets. Happy coding.